What I wanted to talk about was about questions. I don't know how many of you have felt once you left the religion, or maybe you still feel, or maybe you still feel a bit lost. I'm not sure. But I know when I left, I wasn't sure about a lot of things. And I just excuse me here for a second. I'm going to close the window there. But I wasn't sure of a lot of things. So I just kind of started over. I didn't really talk a lot about my feelings. I didn't know how to at that time, and that was back in 2012 when I left, or when I finally walked out. I faded away for a few years inside. Of course, everyone does, and then eventually there's that dew point where you just walk away and never ever return. So at that point, I went through a separation in my marriage, which 2 years later in Canada, it turns into a divorce. And so when that happened, the separation happened, I let my ex wife take whatever she wanted from the house. So she took what she wanted. And so I go downstairs, and it's all these JW books, just stacks and stacks of books, because we had just moved. And the whole family kind of faded away, is what happened. So and it's interesting when retrospects, when I look back, I have all that experience, and I can see how different people respond differently to fading away from the Jehovah's Witness religion. So some return, and in that case, with my ex, she returned, and but my son, he stayed out. So it's interesting. Everyone has their own journey, and everyone has to explore it in their own way. But anyways, I'm going back. So I went downstairs. There's all these bound volumes, all these books, everything. So I just went outside. I waited. I gave it some time. I held on to it for a while. I put it all in a storage. And finally, after about 6 months or so, it was New Year's, and I just had a big bonfire, burnt it all. I kept my Bible that I pioneered with, and I had a lot of good energy in that. It's a 1984 edition of the New World Translation. I rebound it and everything when I was in the religion, and I kept another Bible that was brand new and in the plastic. I didn't have the heart to burn that one, but I burnt everything. I burnt those big Bibles. I had 30 years worth of stuff burnt, and I thought, well, I was convinced that the religion was satanic. So, you know how the religion is. If Satan's in anything, you got to burn it, get rid of it. So I was convinced it was in all the Rutherford's teachings. It's all in that religion, all in those bound volumes. So I burnt it all. And that's just what I did. And then I moved on. And I started exploring other things in life. And I started making other goals and learning new things outside of the religion. And then throughout that course, I started exploring other things. I'd watch Little Mosque on the Prairie, and I'd realize that the Muslim religion, they have, everyone kind of feels they're the right one, the right religion all over the earth. But all the religions on earth have tolerances built in. Judaism, Muslim, Hindu, everyone has tolerances for other faiths except one. And that was the one that I was in. There was no tolerance. So it's interesting. But all the other religions worship God in a similar way. They all have kind of like a 10 Commandments, where you do good to your neighbor, and you worship God. And, there's variances with rules and so forth in every religion. But for the most part, people that try to follow the religion, they're trying to follow God, or they're trying to know who God is. And that's the big question. Do we have to be a part of a religion to follow God? And I say no. That's how I feel. I strongly feel that. And I base my reasoning on scriptures. God always looked at individuals. God didn't look at religions. And sure, he followed the nation of Israel. And today we have Judaism. We have that nation there. And I think if you follow, who's that guy, Rabbi Manis Friedman, I followed a few of his shows. Very interesting guy. So I think, like, for me, it's a journey, and I'm still exploring. And I don't think, for me, I don't think I have to belong to any religion. But what I find is fascinating is the more that I learn about all these other faiths, that they're not that bad. They're all the same. They all believe in something similar. Well, if it's a Christian part of the Christian land, there's 2.5 billion of us. And even if you're a Jehovah's Witness or ex-Jehovah's Witness, we're all part of that kind of, I guess, group, if you want to look at it that way. But if we go higher up and we think, well, God's a way bigger than any one religion or any one person. God looks down on everyone. And then if God made the whole earth and everything he made on it was perfect, was good, made in his image. He made man, he made us in his image, with the ability to be creative, to create, to grow the race of people on the earth. And isn't that what happened? So now that man is all over the earth, it's just no longer in the Garden of Eden, it's all over the man and woman. So the human race is all over the earth. And I found it interesting when I was watching that rabbi show. He said you got to watch some of this stuff, I think, because he came from the perspective that the woman is actually before the man, because woman gives birth to man. Woman is actually superior. And he has a really interesting and a really nice way of approaching things. So for me, it's all a journey, watching, learning. And what I find fascinating now is I don't have to get in my car, start the engine, and pollute the earth with more gasoline. And I can't afford the gasoline anyways. I'm broke. After this COVID experience, we're all broke. And I just think it's a shame that the governing body walks around and I don't even want to get into that, but they don't understand, perhaps, or do they? Or is this just business? So that's why I choose not to look at religion, because I'm beginning to think that a lot of this is just business. And they're all corporations. Most of them should be taxed, I think, but who am I? I'm no one. But again, when I was 18 years old and I was lost spiritually, it was nice to have a religion to go to. That was back in 1981, a long time ago. But today we're in a different land. Today, or a different age. It's not 1981 any longer. We didn't even have cell phones. In them days, I was working as a technician and we had beepers. So it was radio towers that would just send a message and it would beep your beeper. And if your beeper beeped, you'd call the office. That was our communication. So then now we have these smartphones. We have computers that are right in our hand. I never dreamed I'd be alive to see that. So, and I grew up, or I went through my life in the technology business, but I didn't think I'd see this. So it's quite miraculous. And what I see happening is it's a brand new age. So no longer do you have to get into your car and go to a meeting, go to a church or a group. You can tune in on YouTube and you can watch whatever you want to watch. And you can educate yourself all over the earth with all the different beliefs all over the earth. And you'll find, as you educate yourself, that they're all similar. They all love. And that's in every religion. And when you really look at it, isn't that what God said? He created man in his image. So God's image is love. And I think, like that rabbi was saying, these threats aren't working anymore. Just excuse me. Threats with Armageddon, threats with Armageddon, and threats with if you're not good, well, it's all Armageddon threats pretty much. But and then the pressure with the shunning, and if you're not good, you're going to be shunned, and blah blah blah. That's all old stuff. These threats aren't working anymore. And kids are growing up, and fathers are going down, get up for the meeting, get up for the meeting. And the kid looks up and says, I'm not going, lays his head back on the pillow. What's the father going to say? Well, if you don't go, you're going to die at Armageddon. Well, the father can't throw out that kind of a judgment because he knows darn well it's not true. And the kid knows that too. So the father goes to the meeting by himself, and the kid sleeps. And it's not the end of the world. I mean, the kid knows that life goes on. So that's these threats, they're not working. And they don't explain these questions to the younger generation. Threats, Armageddon's coming. So I think, like that rabbi was saying, and it really made sense to me, is we have to start looking at things that, not that I need to be good so I don't die at Armageddon, is, well, God needs us. That we can do what we want. We're going to live our life out and do whatever we want, and we're going to die. And what's next? So from our perspective as a human, we're just kind of here. We're in this body. We're walking around, and we come out of this religion that completely kind of was twisted. We were in it, confused but deluded, but we got out. And now we look back, we wonder, now what? Do we give up on everything? Do we just give up on religion? Do we give up on God? So for many of us, we probably gave up on religion. I did. But I didn't. I did and I didn't, because I was curious. As an ex-Jehovah's Witness, you're very spiritual. And you're always used to studying and reading the Bible. So to go from 120 to zero, it's something has to fill the void. So, and many of us do different things. I think get involved in some of the stuff Jesus did. Go down and help the poor, work at a soup kitchen. It's like pioneering. It's like going out in service, but it's different. It's helping. And I began to realize that the communities need us. And so the graveyard, the community graveyard, I had to bury both my parents. And so I got to know the guy that runs a community graveyard. We were out in a small community, and they need help. People each year to come and rake it up and make the graveyard look nice. It's all voluntary. So we got involved, and we did that. And I got my brother there, and got a few more. You know how that is. So that's camaraderie within a community. That's love of neighbor, love of our own father and mother who were in that graveyard, really. But how many of us just plant our dead and then walk away and never go back? So it's I know as a Jehovah's Witness, there wasn't a lot of focus on that kind of stuff. In fact, there was no focus on that, on community, contributing to the community. Go out and help pick garbage up even in the ditches, and help keep our communities clean. I think that's really where we're all missing the mark in a lot of religions, is we're too busy running to church trying to be self-righteous, and we forget about what's real around us. The garbage that's in the ditch. Well, I got my suit and tie on. I can't go out and pick garbage. The 4-H kids will pick it, or if you're lucky enough, the prisoners will come down and pick it. But a lot of this garbage just sits there and blows around in the fields, and no one picks it. So the farmers end up picking it. I see farmers out there picking garbage because they don't want it blowing in their fields. But anyways, I think we've missed the mark a bit. We're too busy running to churches, trying to be self-righteous, trying to look good. And it's not about works. If we read the Bible, it's a gift. This is all a gift. We're here. We're in this body. And, we didn't ask to be in this body, but we're here. And we fight. It's always a fight. I've been studying a lot of the indigenous beliefs. And they talk about the dark wolf and the white wolf. And it's a struggle within us. The yin, the yang, it's all over the world. The Bible, it talks about, Paul talked about, we have this struggle within us. And he talks about the fruits of the spirits and the works of the flesh. So in all the cultures, all the religions, they talk about the same fight, the same struggles that we have day to day, day in, day out. So if we look at life where God needs us, God said to Adam and Eve, he said to them, be fruitful, fill the earth. And so now we're at that point where the earth is almost too full. We're having trouble now, and we're using up too many of its resources, going to too many meetings and running around trying to go out and service and hit all these doors 3 times a year. That's a lot of gasoline in our country. And if you're in hot countries, it's a lot of gasoline to keep cool, you know. And we're all wearing these suits tied up with tight necks, and we're sweating in them. And you wear your t-shirt, you know, so it's hot. And climate change is making it hotter in some countries. And here we had record heat, 40 degrees Celsius last year. Never ever before. I never ever imagined that here in Alberta. So when we look at everything, I think God needs us. God needs us, and he needs us to get involved and to help him, because the plan is to fill the earth and to build it into a paradise condition where people are neighborly. Jesus gave us one command. He says, just love your neighbor. That's it. Love your neighbor. What does it mean to love your neighbor? Well, you're not going to commit adultery. You're not going to steal. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. You know, you're going to love your neighbor. And if you have love as your for the focus in your mind, then it pushes out Satan. It pushes out the bad part of us, or the works of the flesh, if you want to call it that. You know, that part of us that's just, I don't know, it's just a little bit up to no good. And we all have it. It's built into all of us. And maybe that's the test in life, is we got to make it through this life. And we got to struggle with these two wolves. You know, we have this white wolf and this dark wolf, and it's a struggle. But if you get to know them, you can laugh at them. And I've learned to laugh. I was angry for so long when I learned that I was deceived with just the word truth. Who has truth? So the religion is the only one, the Jehovah's Witness, that claims they have the truth on the earth. The only religion. But yet the Bible says Jesus is truth. So I look around the earth, and I believe that, yes, you cannot find truth anywhere on the earth, only in heaven. And that's what the Bible says. It says that Jesus is truth. So truth doesn't exist on earth. In fact, Paul said that we only see a hazy outline in 1 Corinthians 13, the latter part. He says it's a hazy outline. He says it's like looking through a metal mirror. Have you ever looked through a metal mirror? It's kind of, you know, it's tin, but you can kind of see your reflection. It's not like a mirror, but it's metal and it's hazy. There's an image. So I believe that all the religions on earth have that. They have this hazy outline. I believe any of us that were taught in the JW, we've got a hazy outline. But it's up to us to find or to see the truth. The truth's in heaven. So we may not see it until it gets here. And in the meantime, God needs us. God has a purpose. And whether we like it or not, the universe is spinning, the earth is spinning, everything's changing. You will never see the same thing ever again. It becomes his or her story, history. That's what it all is history. Everything that we've experienced up till now is history. So the train is moving, and there is a creator. Like, we all know that, or we wouldn't have been in the religion. We all know there's a creator, and some of us leave and we try to go atheist, but you can't. You know deep down in your heart that there is something out there, because we've experienced it. I've experienced it so many times in the religion. And I think every single person on earth, you know, sometimes you might be a single mother, pregnant or whatever, and you're going to Walmart and there's no parking, and it's winter and 40 below out, and you got to get diapers and it's just you. And, you know, someone pulls out and there's a parking stall. So you say, thanks, God. How do you know that God didn't do that? You see, God works in small ways all the way through life. And we probably couldn't count all the little ways that God's maybe just making a way for us. And he doesn't I don't see anybody ever having the big picture, understanding the whole thing. What I see is that we just have we inch our way around here and there in the dark, and there's this little light, and we look off and we can see that little light over there, and We follow it. And for me, it pulled me into the JW religion. If I didn't do the 30 years in the religion, I wouldn't be here today talking to you with the knowledge I have, the experience I have. All these things that are man-made have to crumble, and that's what we see happening. The numbers are decreasing in the religion. They don't announce in the yearbook how many are coming in or out. So we know it's declining. And with the information age now, you don't need to start your car. You don't need to pollute the earth. Even the Bible tells us we shouldn't, God is concerned about the earth, because the big plan is that the earth is going to be a paradise, and that man on earth will love the neighbor. So it starts with each of us individually. If we love our neighbor, and we love that neighbor, and we love that neighbor over there, and that neighbor over there, then we love everyone around us. And then that's contagious, because, if our neighbor has a flat tire, we know him. We're driving along, we know that's our neighbor. We're going to stop and help our neighbor. It's not some con artist that's going to rob us and shoot us. It's our neighbor. You see, love of neighbor, you know who you're loving. All those ones right around you. Hey, this guy's going through, he has cancer. He can't look after his horse. So you bring his horse over and you feed his horse. You just look after it. And that's what love of neighbor is. You help your neighbor. And I think we start doing that on a small scale, on an individual scale. And then it spreads. And then the neighbor helps his neighbor. And pretty soon we have a community. But isn't that what we have? Like, as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, we've been so far removed from society, these communities that we live in, that we find that once we start looking around, there is actually a community. There is actually a neighborhood that actually cares for you. And if you said you needed help, they would be right there for you all over the world. So it's already there. We just have to do a little bit more. So perhaps we, before, as a Jehovah's Witness, we weren't really in there as a true neighbor. It was always conditional with a Bible study or something. And that's not love of neighbor. That's not what Jesus was talking about. So Jesus was talking about if your neighbor was starving, didn't have the paycheck or whatever, maybe a few of you would get together and help that neighbor out, some food. I don't know. Love of neighbor comes in so many different ways. And then pretty soon we start thinking of love of community. It grows in countries, and we're in countries, and then these countries start loving other countries. Well, hey, guess what? That's happening right today. Countries help countries out. The world is better than it's ever been. The world is in the best condition, the best place it's ever been. Years and years ago, if you didn't do this or that, you might starve in a week. But today, there's all kinds of social assistances. There's all kinds in most countries, and it's getting better where countries are helping countries. And instead of sending Putin a bunch of letters, maybe we can just start praying and hoping that Putin he's in such a powerful position, he could help the whole world out. And he is still rightfully a child of God. And this is all God's earth. So it's interesting we live in this time that we live in, the information age, and how we can learn so much about all the people around the earth. And we can have tolerance to their faith, whatever it is, because we know that they have the same kind of tolerance towards us. And isn't that what building a better earth is about? Like, that's what I think. So I started to give an illustration, and I said it's like everything's moving forward. It's like there's a train, and to be on that train, it's actually quite simple. All you have to do is love your neighbor. So by loving your neighbor, you're on that train. That's what Jesus said. Everything hangs under that command. So that's about all I can say. And I'm not a rabbi. I'm never been an elder. I worked for 30 years diligently through the congregation, and the last 3 they let me pioneer. And I was a bit of a maverick, I think, throughout. I always questioned things, and I remember one elder, we'd always have discussions, and we'd say, well, it's the closest thing I know to the truth. Until something closer comes, I'm not going to change. But if something closer comes, I'm going to change. Like, we kind of had this going thing. We're pioneering. We talk like this. So I don't know how everyone else was, but I had my concerns, all the way through about things. I never really could figure that 1914 thing out. And when I went through my baptism questions, I thought the woman was Mary, like all the other religions. But the elders said, "Well, we'll pass you through what you go through," and that's just the way it was. So you go through it, and you believe a lot of it, and some of you don't. But it's kind of a way of life, and there's a lot of teaching, a lot of religion, a lot of Bible. And was it a bad thing for me when I was 18? I don't know. What else was I going to do with my time? So don't ever beat yourself up for where you've been and where you went in life. This is all God's plan. It's God's earth. And on the earth, there's all these cultures, all these ways. And we happen to be in a particular way, and now we're out of it. Or maybe you're still in it. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. Because if we love our neighbor, it doesn't matter, really. Have a good day.